Welcome back to another edition of Building Wealth and Health, the live stream. Good evening,
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Matt. What's up, my man?
Good evening. Good evening. How's it going?
Pretty good, man. I have
Yep.
a late Starbucks with me.
Ah, yeah,
I
I'm
had to,
actually having a little coffee myself. I don't know why
are
it's so
you?
late. I just had some, so yeah.
Yeah, we did uh, my daughter is in choir at
Ah,
school,
yes.
and
Yeah.
on Wednesdays I pick her and a couple other girls up and take them home, and she always seems to convince me to stop by the Bucks on the way home. So I'm having a very late coffee. I'll be up all
Y-
night. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Get some work done.
Hmm.
Read some of those SEC papers and
Yeah, I've got about 100 and some pages left to read, so I'll
you got
crank
through
through
about
that.
a half of it then. That's awesome.
Almost half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost half. Yeah.
Almost half.
Nice.
And then yeah. So yep, I'm all fired up, wired up. Excited to start kind of we'll say the next, I don't know, phase two of the Building Wealth and Health live stream as we're gonna venture into coaching, and not football coaching or soccer coaching or basketball coaching. We've already done all those things, so we're gonna apply our knowledge like Dr. Matt and I do, and we're gonna start helping people in all kinds of different manners, and helping you with your finances, your economic recovery program personally, your obviously your health, and that means mental and physical health, and how that guides you back into progressing into whatever ventures you're taking on. Obviously, we talk about entrepreneurship on this channel, and business ownership and all kinds of things like that. Investing, the whole nine yards. So we're gonna focus more on getting you guys in the right headspace, mentally, physically, and financially, taking on questions, guiding the whole thing. So it's the personal coaching thing, which I used to make fun of for a long time. But I'm realizing if you do it the right way in the right format, it actually makes sense for a lot of people. And Dr. Matt
Yeah.
and I have realized that it's beneficial to a lot of people as we've kind of been doing this channel, or this stream even. So
Hmm.
um, I'm excited to kind of take the next step here and
Yeah,
see
me
what we can
too.
do.
Me too. I mean, I think, it's a early stage creation that we're looking to put together here and
Mhm.
evolve, I think, and kind of seeing what the need is, what the and how we can best be of service to people. I mean, I think at this point in our careers, if you will, we've got adequate experience and successes and failures to, really be have some wisdom and support people in a lot of these things. So
And that was kind of a shady way of calling me old, isn't it? Hmm? Hmm? Is
I,
that
I don't know, man. I
it's
mean, a little bit maybe, but
kind of a
not intentional. But yeah,
backward comment?
but it is pretty interesting. I mean, we have been through a lot, and
Yes,
that's
we have.
it's I think both of us have been somewhat entrepreneurial our entire adult lives, and
Mhm.
you know, and I think the people that we attract to this stream are people that are looking. They're not people that just want to do the 9 to 5. They don't want to just do the work for someone else and make someone else rich, or
Yep.
they want to create what their own vision. And I think that's something that you and I have we've done well, we've done poorly, I mean, right, we've done all of
You
that. So
gotta do it both ways, and I
yeah.
think that's important for people to understand. I
Hmm.
mean, I even had a conversation the other day with somebody about that, and
Yeah.
it's funny because you hear all these cliches all the time, especially, as long as we've been doing what we've been doing, and people say, you got to fail to succeed, and you got to make mistakes, and you got to, jump in there with the
Hmm.
whole thing. But I heard this person the other day literally say, because I'm asking them, well, why, as we get into the topic tonight of actually changing careers, when and why to do that. We're going to kind of talk about, especially in the last 2 years, how that's progressed people, whatever. But they literally were afraid to fail, and because
Yeah.
they were holding on to that, as we talked about before too, on the fear, holding on to not making a decision and not jumping into something because, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll
Right.
probably fail, probably make mistakes. And I'm like, well, of course you will. And they looked at me
Hmm.
like I was like, they're like, well, that's
Hmm.
why I don't want to do it. I'm like, no, 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 no. You have to understand,
Hmm.
if you're failing and you're making mistakes, progression will happen right behind it.
Hmm.
And that's so important to say. You have to understand you're going to lose more than you win.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean,
And that's it.
yeah, I saw something come through Instagram earlier with like Elon Musk interview or something, and he was actually describing like three pretty catastrophic business failures that
Hmm.
he had. Everybody
Yeah.
associates him with this just amazing business guy, and he is, and there's no doubt about it. But people don't realize the how hard, what it took to get where he is, and some of that
Right.
was failing. But he didn't. He's he's cut from a different cloth in a lot of ways. For him, it was
Yeah.
not like a big deal. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to give up.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of what you're what you're saying there too.
Yeah. And that's
Mhm.
the thing is you're gonna it may be you don't know what business you're starting, but you have several interests and you try several of them and they all fail until you
Yeah.
get to the one that works. It may be that you've got everything dialed in and you're so good at this field, but you just don't know how to run the business and it doesn't work right away. I mean, I tell people all the
Mhm.
time, you're not going to listen, once you go into business for yourself and you're starting your own business, have some plan financially of
Mhm.
how you're going to get through that first year because you're not going to make any money. And if you do, it will reverse on you and you will end up losing some of that somewhere. You will piss some of that away in the
Right.
first couple of years. And that's supposed to happen. And there's reasons for that. There's just questions you don't know what to ask yet. There's just things you don't know
Mhm.
what to do with yet. And
Right. Right.
it depends on the business and kind of how things are set up, but it will happen. And you can't sit there and say, well, I got to stop. Because I know people that have been pretty successful from the get-go and they're like, well, their first upside down project or their first 3 months in a row where they didn't make money, they were like, I got to close the doors. This is not, I got to go back to work. And those people probably aren't cut from the cloth that is going to be able to go on and be
Right.
their own
Yeah.
business owner. Right. And that's okay
Yeah.
too.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
may
Nothing wrong with
learn
that.
from this whole experience that I don't think this is not for me. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, man, there's many and many and many a time where I've thought that, phew, you know, it'd be nice not to have to. It'd be nice to know I had this like paycheck every couple weeks coming
Oh,
in,
sure.
and
Sure.
I could budget this and I could do that and all this, and yeah, I get that,
Yeah.
but
But
I
you're at a
also.
point now where that's basically what's going on. I mean, it takes a while to
Mhm.
get to a consistent income stream. There's gonna be a point where
Exactly.
you're making good money if
Right.
you're successful, but there's
Right.
gonna be a point at, on some level, if you're set up correctly, you're basically being paid as
Yeah.
like a salary.
Right.
Um,
Totally.
but again, it
Yeah.
doesn't happen right away.
No, it doesn't, and I think that's I think why. Yeah, it takes practice. It takes commitment. It takes a little bit of fearlessness and just diving in, and
Yep.
you know it takes a lot of commitment really to not give up.
Yeah, what's
Um,
funny about that is people. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this too. That people, if you're in business for yourself, they assume you have more time on your hands.
yeah.
Whether it's trying to set something up to like, go out to
Right.
happy hour or on the weekend or,
Hmm.
hey, let's go out and do this trip, whatever. And you tell somebody, I can't get that schedule. And they're like, what are you talking about? You work for yourself. You own your own businesses.
Hmm.
It's the opposite. You have less time, especially if
Right.
you're doing it right.
Yeah.
There's a point where you can become a little more flexible again, but
Especially at the beginning.
the
Yeah.
beginning,
Yeah.
it's 24 hours a day, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and everybody has different goals and different needs and different desires and
Mhm.
however they want to make it work. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a one way, one size fits all kind of thing. But
No, not in the
I
least.
I do think though that being the entrepreneur, the person that's willing to step out and do a business like, on your own there is a kind of a common thread
Mhm.
among people like
Yeah.
that. And yeah, they're a little nuts at times.
I mean, you have to be the things that you
Right?
have to do are a little
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, and you have to be willing to say it's okay. And
Mhm.
at the beginning, it may feel uncomfortable. Sometimes people are totally wired, like, that's just the way their brain works.
Mhm.
For me, it was realizing that I don't have the ability to work for somebody else, and I actually tried several times, like,
Mhm.
"No, I need to kinda just get into something," and it just
Right.
man, I just every bit of energy was repelling me out of that office wherever it was, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like 2
Oh, yeah.
magnets on the back end. It was just
Yeah.
fight and fight, and it was finally like,
Right.
this is not
It's not
working at
gonna
all.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally can relate to that, and
Yeah.
not maybe in a, I mean, fight type thing, but just like a feeling of like, yeah, this isn't really what I need to do. And
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, it's, I don't know. It's fun to look back a little bit and see some of that, and just sort of like, wow, that's why that didn't work, or
Yep.
you know, or it worked for a while until it didn't, and it was served you well and for what it needed to, and then
Yeah, it may have filled a
you know,
purpose for,
yeah,
temporarily, whatever it was,
hmm
but, it's you
yeah,
figure it out. You definitely figure it out. So may take a little longer for some people. Some people are just know right away that's gonna be
right,
their gig. Um,
right. And I think
or
anymore, people are really have more opportunity. I mean, when you and I
yeah,
came out, we didn't, I mean, opportunity, not in like, we had opportunity, but like
sure.
opportunity to um, reach people and to
Mhm.
create in a way that's a lot different now than it was, 20, 25 years ago,
Right.
and it's just the ability to put out content, the ability to reach people, the ability to create whatever it is you want to create. I
Yeah.
mean, and have people see it,
Oh, yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah,
we
I
didn't
mean,
we didn't have that. I mean,
imagine in high school us having the ability to live stream like a radio broadcast. Imagine that, like,
I have no idea what that would have been like. Yeah,
it
I mean,
would yeah. Or we joke
live
about some
stream,
of the things in college that we
computers.
coulda done. Yeah, I mean, just
Right,
the
right.
stuff that
I
you
know.
watch
It's
that
totally,
it
totally.
I mean,
Mhm.
there was I mean, I always tell my kids, like, I was born too early. And I mean, every generation probably says that in some level once you see things kind of progress and change or whatever,
Yeah,
and you become interested in something that's new now that you had no idea existed 15 years ago.
right.
But, it's like there's certain things that if these things
Mhm.
were available to us, to me, that
Totally.
the things I would have used and I would have grappled right onto a lot of this stuff and then run with it. And who knows what direction I would have gone. But
Right,
there was
right.
always that piece that was like, that's part of what I would have become. That's where I
Mhm.
mean, that's why we ended up where we did anyway. So,
Exactly. Yeah,
um,
it is what it is at the time,
yeah,
right? Yeah. Yeah, it's, yeah, things are just moving so fast now too. I mean, I think, when I look back at how things kind of moved, it was slower. It just didn't happen
yeah,
as instantly. And so there's, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I think people can get really overwhelmed by the sheer speed of things and the sheer, ability to create. And it's like almost like a paralysis of like, I have so much I could do. What am I going to do? Kind of a feeling.
yeah.
And, you know,
What's up, Coop? Thanks for stopping in, buddy.
yeah, hey, Coop.
Coop
So,
Coop is on his way to hopefully changing careers. I think. I know Coop personally, and that's when we talk about this whole there's this whole thing called the Great Reset, right? Um, there's different discussions of what that really means, but because of the crazy world that changed everybody's lives a couple years ago,
mhm,
a lot of people made decisions, and some of that, or I would say a lot of that, had to do with people already in a headspace of looking for something else. And a lot of times in life,
absolutely.
that's what has set up. And I'm talking about like little things to big things. For
Mhm,
me, it was we were looking to, I've been talking with my wife for a while about selling our house. And I was always in a position in the house that we were in previously that I this was never going to be our forever home. And my head was always there. It was kind of this like, you know, kind of this holding this little place marker for
mhm,
when we go to the next step, which for me was going to find land and build a house, right? At some point, that was going to be what we step into, and my wife was always like, I don't know if I want to move. Everything's built up around us since we moved in this house and it's a great location, which it was.
Hmm.
And it still is. But I needed a catalyst to get her to change her mind, basically. And
Hmm.
me trying to sell her on it wasn't going to happen. So when COVID rolled through and flipped the switch on everybody, my wife got furloughed for a while.
Hmm.
Oddly enough, she's in the medical field, and her office just completely. I mean, the opposite happened everywhere of what it should have with the medical industry. Is like, we'll just close the doors and as you know, we can't see
Yeah.
anybody. Well, that's
Yeah.
counterproductive, but I digress on that. But long story short, she had time to help me finish the projects and finish the remodel stuff in our house to put on the market. And that was enough for her to say, "Yep, let's do it. We're in,"
Yeah.
right? And yeah, it's just a matter of a catalyst, something like that changing. And what happens is, a lot of times you have to have that. And
Right.
I had to have that because I was in a point career wise too, where I was trying to, like, I would say, downsize and kind of squeeze into a very special kind of niche of the things I wanted to do.
Right.
And that forced me to have to do that. My kids couldn't go to school in person. They were on a damn computer and they had to be home. And once my wife went back to work, well, one of us had to be here with them. So it was like,
Yeah.
I'll do it because you know what? Actually, this helps me progress to the next spot that I want to be anyway. So
Right.
that
Right.
happened for a lot of people.
For sure.
Um, and like,
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah. And like Coop is gonna do, there's, we're in, so, and Dr. Matt too, we're sitting in a position investment wise where we're looking for a couple little things to happen to kind of help us, like Hoops, and try and get over the hump and make that next step. And it's another catalyst of I'm
Hmm.
changing my career, I'm changing my role of what I'm going to do. And career is a kind of a loose term anyway to
Right.
get to that next step. And I think that no matter what it is, there's got to be a push, whether it's a person, an event, whatever it is. There's going to be a push to
Yeah.
change careers because we talked about it's scary to make
Right.
change, right?
Totally.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I think this is an incredible time to be living through right now. I mean, like you said, I mean, we're talking about this, like, whatever they're calling it, the Great Reset, and all these things, and people don't want to work, and it's all so many levels of it, right? Like you had people that were easily getting money to sit at home and take unemployment and all that, and that was
mhm,
one part of the picture, right? And then the other part were people that were like, I can do this job from my computer and I'm more efficient, at
right.
home, and like I can, I can run and grab my kids from school and come back, and I don't have to stop working. I just have to take a 30-minute break, and as opposed to, like, at the office I have to just close down the computer and blah blah
Mhm.
blah and do all these things, and it's
Get
like a
into
two
traffic and
yeah, it's
yeah.
like a 2-hour project, or
Mhm.
and so you just start to see, like, all these people, like, kind of having these, almost like an awakening of, like, what is work, what am I
Right.
doing, am I what am I doing? Like, here I
Yep.
am going into an office and sitting at this desk or this cubicle, or, you know, doing stuff. And
Mhm.
clearly we see that we don't have to do that necessarily anymore.
Right.
And what does that mean going forward? What does that look like? I mean,
Right.
I don't know.
Sometimes we don't know. It's just a matter of,
Yeah.
like, you have that first piece of, okay, well, I'm going to start working this way,
Yeah.
or I'm going to take the step and I'm going to change the way I'm running my business even.
Right.
And that
Totally.
starts to kind of transpire after you make that first step, then things start kind of opening up a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, when I think of people like wanting to change careers, it's almost like wanting to change how they interact with this thing we call work, right? This thing we call making money, this thing we call providing for ourselves. Like,
Mhm.
it's very archaic in a way, very old,
It
the way
is. It is.
we've been doing it.
Yeah.
And now we have an ability to shift that. And it's going to come with its ups and downs and its
Mhm.
bumpiness, and it's, I don't know, there's going to be a lot of opportunistic things that people are going to do. And
Yeah.
I but nevertheless, that whole kind of umbrella that I think we're all kind of looking at now is evaluating that. That's
Yeah.
super cool. It's super cool.
It's very
But
cool. I mean, it's opened people's eyes to the way
mhm,
that life works. Like, I mean, especially when we talk
mhm,
about money on this channel too, and what money
mhm.
really is. And
Totally.
I mean, listen, Coop gets it. He maybe you shouldn't post some of these things, but I get it. He's very efficient. I know what Coop does. He's very efficient in his job, and I know
Yeah.
what else he does. And I really hope that what we're sitting on right now happens sooner than later, because nothing but the best for this guy. He I'm blessed where I'm at. I feel good about the
Mhm.
things that have happened to me, and I'm not gonna, I'm not I don't I'll have regrets in life, but I'm trying to absorb the things that have changed for
Mhm.
me. And as much as I hated what happened with the pandemic and all this crap, there have been shining, like, little shining lights for a
Right.
lot of people, but for me for sure. And I take that as
Absolutely.
a grain of salt, but I'm hoping this happens sooner than later for Coop too, because he's got so much upside for the next step that,
Right.
it's it's like right there in front of us, and I just want it to happen so I can just, high
Yeah,
five
yeah.
the whole thing.
Right. That's awesome.
Um, my
Yeah.
cousin's in that position too, and I just wish he would just step out. I'm not gonna encourage or discourage any of it, because everybody's gotta be ready on their own, but it's a matter of understanding that if it's driving you that much, then just do it. Because if anything else comes from this 2.5 year craziness, is the unforeseen can happen at any time, and you never know
Right.
when it's going to happen. So, the longer you wait,
Yeah.
the longer before you can start again, or start it up. So you just something to keep
Yeah.
in mind.
Yeah. And I think I mean, it's easy to look at a lot of the nefarious kind of stuff that's kind of under behind the scenes of a lot of it, but I think it's also so important to look at yeah, like kind of get connected to the good stuff, like you said about it, and
Mhm.
what it can, how it's pushed people, opened people's eyes, started conversations that maybe wouldn't have happened before. Um, yeah, makes you wonder like what's going to happen to like all these big enormous skyscraper buildings that no longer
I think
need
about that all the
people
time.
working in them. And I mean, what the hell do we do with those? And yeah, I don't know. And how fast that can all change.
Uh-huh.
So
I know.
I
It,
mean,
it
so much opportunity. Really there
Cultures
is.
change, societies change.
Yeah.
That's why there's ruins that we go to visit. You know what I mean? Maybe
Hmm.
those. I think at some point that could be part of the deal
Well,
too.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think I just get excited for people to kind of wake up to their potential.
Yes. Yes.
Like it's just the fact that hey, I don't have to do what makes me unhappy.
Mhm.
And maybe I do it for a little while longer. Maybe I do it part time. Maybe I do it during the day and then other things at night. But they start to have this awareness of engaging in what really makes them tick, what makes them feel good, what makes them,
Right.
um, enjoy life. And I think, I mean, personally, knowing you for as long as I've known you, seeing you step into like this whole thing that's built by Bailey's was just like, holy shit, like this is what Shane's does. This is where his passion is.
Mhm.
This is not just this like hobby. This
Right.
is something that really lights you up, and that's a really cool thing to like see evolve in somebody around you. And the more people you see doing that, it's like, whoa, look at that, look at that, look at that, and it
Mhm.
like inspires you to like, oh yeah, what is it I want to do? How can I engage in some of that? And follow people, model after people, but you got to do it your own way too. So anyway,
You do, but
yeah,
I think once people kind of dip their toes in, they will I think you figure it out pretty quick. Whether it's
totally.
gonna whatever you're looking to do, it's either gonna click fairly
Mhm,
quickly, like you said, and you feel that energy inside, like, oh, okay, this is, you know what,
mhm,
this feels right.
mhm.
Whether or not I'm gonna be successful right away, I don't know, but if I keep going, It's a
Right.
lot easier to do those things and keep going if you feel good about it,
Yeah.
passionate about it, excited about it, and then
Right.
it pulls other people in. Like, you see
Hmm.
the rebound effect from that too, and it's
Totally.
just like we always talk about, it just creates this
Yep.
energy that keeps
Yep.
flowing in and out, and it's like it's a ball that keeps building.
Yeah, and it's amazing like who comes into your life, right? Who you
Right.
connect with,
Yep.
who who opens a door for you that wasn't
Mhm.
there before, but you're in the space to actually see it happen and move it so that you can actually have that opportunity. I mean, that's something for me that I've just been amazed by, in my own experience is this
Mhm.
like who I've connected with, how doors just open when you are engaged in that
Yep.
flow, in that
Yep.
flow. It's not even like a push. It's just sort of like oh, there it is, and you just
Yep.
kind of keep going.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. And I think surrounding yourself with those kinds of people is
hmm
it's hard to navigate for a lot.
hmm
I think that in society it's just hard to navigate. Like, who are those people that I'm supposed to surround myself? Like, we talk about
right.
like-minded people, but sometimes we don't know
hmm
what like-minded I mean, I have lots of interests, and I can go to different groups of people and have the same conversation with those groups of people, but I don't know if those groups of people are good for me as a whole moving forward in life and just doing what I'm doing.
hmm
I can go sit with a group of guys and talk about basketball for hours, but what's the benefit overall other than just having a good time?
hmm
What does that really mean when we're surrounding
Yeah.
ourselves with that same sort of energy? It's got to be an all-encompassing group of people all the time, and then there's little subgroups that you just go enjoy life
Yeah.
with on the side. But it's hard to understand what that is. I think at least at
Yeah.
the beginning, until you find if you're searching for that one thing that you want to do and like move forward with, it's
hmm
kind of hard to know what that like-mindedness really is. But once you get
It's
it,
true.
you know. And
Right.
then, like you said, it starts attracting another whole realm of people that come in. Like, where
Yeah.
were you like 10 years? How do I not? How
Right.
did I not connect with you guys down the 5 years ago? But it's funny how that happens. I
It
mean,
is.
they just start showing up like out of the
Yeah.
woodwork, literally.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, I think there's like it sounds kind of out there, but I think it's an actual law of the universe in a way
Mhm.
of how it's like your antenna gets tuned a certain way and you start picking up the radio stations that you need at that moment.
Right.
And before you just weren't attuned to it. So it just didn't come in. You just couldn't
Yep.
hear it. You just wouldn't find it. And that just takes something that just takes practice and time and um, being really what I think it comes down to, Shane, is like there's a state that you really need to be in yourself, right? Like
Mhm.
you can't look for this from other people.
No.
You can't get it from other people.
No.
It's if you're looking for that validation or um, that attaboy and that kind of thing, those are nice to have, but
Mhm.
that's not the core thing. And so I think the like-minded people, at least in my experience, are there when I am so clear about what I'm doing and who I am, and
Yep.
everyone else, is, it's not that I don't care, but I kind of don't care. I mean,
Yeah, and
it,
you shouldn't if you're doing it right.
mhm,
You know what I mean? Like, you're right, that the
yeah,
validation come it's the result of what has become of you.
yeah,
And yes, you can I need to get better at, but you can get better at receiving that.
yeah,
But, you get your ass slapped on the court after you've made a good play. You weren't trying to make the play so someone would slap your ass, trust me. That's that's not why you're doing it. If you're out there for that reason, like, I wanna go out and score
right,
20 because I wanna go out
right,
and score 20 and help my team.
yeah,
I don't want
yeah,
the attaboy, and then I'll go out and
uh,
score 20 so I can get that. Like, that's
right,
that's how you have to look at that is,
yeah. Well,
you know
it's more of I think a lot of people are so externally motivated, right? Like what's coming from the outside,
Mm,
and that can't be the primary motivation because
right,
you're never ever going to be satisfied. You're
right.
always going to be driving, and I'm not saying you shouldn't. I mean, there's a balance there, right? But
Mhm,
if that's the sole motivation, if that's the sole reason is that I don't know, your dad likes it or you got this amount of money in the bank, or all these
Mm-hmm.
sort of external things.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff is so, I mean, it's never going to end if that's your constant source around this. So
No.
the more you get clear in yourself about what gives you the joy and the happiness and the whatever it is there, that's that stuff that's where that spark, I think, comes out and just
Mm-hmm.
builds and builds, and that's what people are attracted to, and that brings more people that have that same kind of level of awareness about themselves,
Yep.
and it just sparks from there. So anyway, I think that's
Yeah.
something that is
You
at least
can't. You're right.
for
You can't do it
me.
for others. Yeah. You can't.
That's,
And listen, I've been there, done that. Got the
me too.
T-shirt. I mean, I got a lot of
Totally.
T-shirts from that. Trying to. And it's not just one person. It's a many different people on
No,
many different aspects. Like, well, or I want to do it for this person because I think it'll help them, or I'm
it's
going to do it because I
right.
need. I need to make so much money every year, or I'm gonna. It's just like
It's
you're
hard,
right.
isn't it? It's
You'll
hard.
never get that figured out.
Yeah, it's hard because
Yeah.
you never, who knows what, I mean, those people are fickle, people change, people have,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that if that is your constant need to do this or validation, then oh my gosh,
Hmm.
how it's like a moving goalpost every day.
Always moving.
And so
Always.
that's
And
why
they're
it's
not
got to be
watching
you.
either. You
No,
know? No one's really paying attention,
no.
and that's what you start realizing when you start getting into
Uh-huh.
that world where it's like
I
you're doing
totally,
it,
totally.
and you're just
Nobody
doing it because you
really
love doing
cares.
it, and you realize
Right.
like, "Yeah, hey, blah, blah," and people are like, "Yeah, that's great."
Hmm.
"Oh." I mean, I listen, to this day, I can tell you, people are like, "Oh, that's cool that you're doing that." Or all the different things that I've all the last few years, especially when I've put stuff up and done videos and people will come and talk to you about whatever, like, "Oh, I
Hmm.
didn't realize you're doing that." And like,
Hmm.
that's kinda
Yeah.
crazy that you don't
Right.
even realize, like, you talk to me every day, yet you weren't really paying attention,
No.
And we make that comment about golf all the time, like, golf is life, like, the best definition of an understanding of life is if you play golf. There's so many different lessons from golf, and you go out and you
Totally.
play, and it's the same thing, you get
Yeah.
nervous, and when you're hitting a shot because you think everybody's watching and you don't wanna screw up. No one's actually paying attention. They don't give two shits about your golf
Hmm.
game. They're
Right.
just caring about what their own score is and how they're playing and
Right.
working on their own swing. I mean, how many times have I've played with you and you hit a bad shot and I'll walk up like, "Hey, Mehdi, how'd it go? Where'd you go?" And you're like, "I was not. Sorry, I wasn't watching, man. I was thinking
I know.
about this my swing and what I need to be doing on the next shot.
I
Where'd you
know.
go? You went
Right.
over here? All right, let's go get your ball." Like,
Right.
yeah, I
Right.
wasn't
Right.
watching. I was,
Totally.
you know?
Totally. Yeah. People are very self-absorbed into what they have going on, and
Yeah.
there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. That's fine. I
No,
mean,
you
but I
should be
think,
self-absorbed in some ways.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But we also want
Come out
to,
here, I'll teach you how to play golf.
yeah, but we also have to just be aware of, yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like people don't pay attention, and yet we think they are, so we act in a way to get that validation, attention,
Mhm.
whatever, right? And it's tough. I mean, a relationship with people inherently has that level of kind of interaction, right? Like you're
Yep.
always going to be comparing or talking, or it's whatever. It's
Mhm.
just normal stuff. But I
Yep.
think when you can really get clear at the end of the day, kind of where your passion, your motivation, what makes you feel good, right? Like
Right.
that's where the juice is. Like
Mhm.
that's where that fire starts,
Right.
and I think so. Yeah, when I think of changing careers, or I think of people like in the midst of these decisions, I mean, I think
Mhm.
a lot of times don't do it because you think someone else wants you to, or because
Right.
your dad might say you're, or don't not do it because someone else doesn't want you
Eh.
to. Like that's
Right.
the other side of that too.
Yep.
This is your creation, your
Mhm.
passion, your interest, and if you come from that place, if you really can, boy, who knows what could happen after that. I really
Yeah.
feel like that, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you'll be miserable either way on that decision, if you're doing it because you think someone else
right.
thinks you should be doing it, you're going to be
Mhm.
miserable. And if you don't do something because you think of all the people that are be like frowning upon you or
Yeah,
harassing you about or whatever it is, then you're
right.
going to be miserable. And I know plenty of people
Mhm.
on both sides of that coin,
Yeah,
and they're miserable, or they have
yeah,
been miserable until they made the decision for themselves.
right.
And if you make it and you've dialed it in, then you're gonna be just fine. You'll get it figured out,
Mhm.
no doubt. Every time you'll get it figured out. It doesn't mean you're making
Yeah,
millions of dollars, but you're gonna be
right,
doing what you wanna do,
right,
and you'll be happy about it, and you'll be productive enough for yourself and other people.
right, and then you start attracting the people that share that vision with you, or that, or at least
Mhm.
support you, you know,
Right.
and whether or not they agree with you or understand, or,
Yep.
you know, they at least support you and will be there for you, and,
Yeah.
you know,
And they're generally
whatever that
happy
looks
for
like.
what
Right,
you've done and the decision you've made and the
right,
direction you've gone and the whole thing, and,
and you don't have
um
to, you don't have to, and, it's like the people that are the naysayers or the non-supportive, I mean, it's, they just kinda, like, fade away, because, like, what difference
Mhm.
does it make, you know? It's like, you're
Right.
like, "Oh, alright." You know, it doesn't mean you don't love them or take, be a part of their life or whatever, but it just means they're not in your head like they used to be,
Yeah.
right? Like, they're not in that space of, like, "Oh, what's mom gonna say if I don't know, do this or that?"
You just can't worry about it.
So,
I know that's hard, especially depending on your
mhm.
age. As a
Yeah,
teenager,
right?
that's really tough. Well, I guess it depends on when. Early teenage years, that's probably all you wanna do is the opposite of what your parents tell you. As you get into college, if you go to college, or if you get into a career after high school,
Mhm.
or a career, just even a job, and you're trying to figure out life, you're probably less apt to wanna make that decision because your parents are telling you the opposite, right? You're kinda like, "Oh, man, I better figure this out because
Right.
now life's for real, and I'm on my own."
Mhm.
Then you progress into your early 20s, and if you're kind of figuring things out and you're lost, that can be really difficult.
Right.
But the funny thing about that is the earlier you make those decisions, the easier it becomes because you have
Totally.
lots of time.
Yeah.
I mean, people hear Gary Vee talk about that stuff all the time, but I think the difference between, he's telling you at 15, at 18, at 20, if you're this age, you need to be doing these things right now, kind of thing. And I think the hard part with some of that is understanding what your passions are, what you're good at, or where
Yeah.
you can
Just
project yourself
Yep.
has to manifest. And sometimes you have to go through or down a road for a while,
Totally. Yep.
and even
Yep.
develop even to
Yep.
develop skills, right? I mean, we have to do that too, before you can say, all right,
Totally.
it's time to switch gears or it's time to
Right.
go this way. And that's okay too. I mean, that's why I think a lot of people, when they call it the midlife crisis, or whatever age that really is anymore.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sometimes it's 25, sometimes it's 55. I mean, it doesn't matter, but there's a point in your brain where your inner self is telling you so passionately,
Mhm.
do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And it's
Mhm.
almost to the point where like you can't not hear it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, a part of you almost, like, dies if you don't
Hmm.
step into what it is, really. I
Yeah.
mean, that sounds dramatic, but I do think that's kind of true for,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've experienced that, like, at some level, it's like, well, I can't not do this,
Hmm.
so I guess I'll do this. And you just kind of go forward. That's kind of my life in many ways, not just career, but you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
di-
But
different story. But
it's
yeah,
okay. It's all
no, it's been fantastic. I love
yeah.
it. I love it. I just sometimes it doesn't make logical mental sense to me. Sometimes I'm like, what? But it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I think, the younger people are, the more they can engage and practice and try and just kind of, I think that's what is great about, being younger in these
Hmm.
conversations is you don't, and this nonsense of, like, figuring it out, like, just leave that aside. I mean,
Oh
that can
yeah.
change constantly. So, again, what do you enjoy? What is it that lights you up?
Hmm.
You know? Is it dancing and doing some stupid TikTok thing? And
I hope not.
I
At
don't
least
know.
progress from there. It's a good
Yeah,
starting point.
turn it into something,
Right.
right? I'm still waiting to see you dancing with your tool belt on and doing
Nope,
some sort of
that's not gonna happen. At least
yeah,
not well, I think so if I don't know I'm on camera, maybe, but if I
maybe.
no, not intentionally, no. It's never
But
gonna
yeah,
happen.
I don't know. I know. I totally get that. But but I mean, the point is, I think being able to try stuff, being able to, find what you like, find what works, find what doesn't, you
Mhm.
know, connect to people, be engaged. I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, so much of it's just getting engaged and just doing
And
it, right?
that's I was just gonna say the same thing. It's exactly right, and that's where I think I've realized this kind of stuff that I'm doing now it works so well is because 'cause I've always been
Hmm.
trying to get engaged and, like, put it out there to get back and put it out there to get back, and Coop
Hmm.
said, just a minute ago that, you sometimes you get support from the most random person, you never met them, whatever it is, and the
Hmm.
longer I've gone doing social media stuff, the more I've
Hmm.
had people I don't even know who they are, where they're from, anything, reach
Right,
out and say thank you, and sometimes it's like,
right,
I'll get a DM on Instagram, "Thank you for blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Well, I don't even know who you are."
right.
Which, at this point in the universe,
Wow,
we don't know anybody, but it's just like,
totally.
Okay, cool." I mean, that's
Yeah, I'm glad
I'm
it.
hoping that's what's happening.
Right.
I had a random guy to and I it was just crazy. He just reached out one day, and ironically, he's actually here in Colorado, but he's been watching my channel for a while, and he was at a point where, again, a catalyst. He'd been in construction a long time, but never was licensed as a general contractor, and just the way he did his business, he didn't need to be.
Yeah.
Um, but long story short, catalyst happened, forced him to have to go get licensed to take care of him and his family. I mean, for different reasons. And he watched some videos and was like, "How do I do this?" And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, can I actually call you and talk about a few things I have questions on before I take this test?" And I'm like, "Yeah, just, I gave him my cell phone number. I'm like, I mean, I don't know if I should be doing this or not, but give it a shot. Because he's like, "Yeah, he was local. It was not that far from where I live." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever."
Hmm.
Worst case scenario, I mean, I hang up, he's a total solicitor, whatever it is. I just like,
Yeah.
I'm done. But legit guy
Right.
told me what was going on. I hooked him up with my engineer, as well to help him out. And then he, on the second try, passed the test.
Nice.
And
Nice.
I didn't know, but he literally
Right.
reached out to me and left me a voicemail too and said, "Thank you.
Hmm.
If I didn't, you know, connect with him and do what, the things that I'm doing, there's no way he would
Right.
have been able to do this." And it was just like, I'll be damned,
Right.
you know?
And good on him for reaching out and getting,
Yes.
and stepping out too, right? There's an
Yep.
engagement.
Absolutely.
It's like,
Yeah.
hey, here's somebody that has some info that I want, or here's someone that's got some experience that I need.
Mhm.
Here's someone that's doing something, that
Right.
and so maybe they'll reach, maybe they'll help me. Maybe they won't. Who knows, right? But
And you
it
don't,
you
but how
don't.
he wouldn't he's not going to know that until he tries. And what's the worst
Got
thing
it.
that's going to happen? I don't contact him. I don't reach back and
Hmm.
hit him up.
Hmm.
That's the worst. He's in the same position he was to begin with. So it's
Right.
like, I mean, this random
Right.
guy on YouTube is making videos.
Right. Totally.
I mean,
Yeah.
at least I can connect with him here on this little comment page and
Right.
just so
Yeah.
I can figure it out. So good for
Yeah.
him,
It's
you
it's a
know?
great it's a great story on a lot of levels, right? And I think especially when people are looking at changing careers and finding
Yep.
other things that they love to do. Do you like to cook? Like, I don't know, like, how do you connect to people that do that well? What does that look like? And
Right.
I don't, it doesn't matter what it is,
Right.
it's whatever lights you up. And
Mhm. There's a lot of
yeah.
things you can do kind of progressively, as they say, on the side too.
Hmm.
You don't have to necessarily. I mean,
That's
we're
right.
talking about
Yeah.
entrepreneurial moves too, and this isn't always about quitting your job and starting a business.
Right.
This has to do with I want to this. You know what? I've heard plenty of stories where people are I'm a engineer by trade or I'm a so and so by trade, and now they're doing something that's completely different.
Right.
Like not
Right.
even on the same spectrum, and you wouldn't have
Right.
ever thought they were that person before meeting them
Yeah.
in their new place, right? But then they'll tell you their story and why they did it and the whole thing. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean quit your job, start a business. It means
Yeah.
I mean, if you find employment or whatever it is, you go do something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Totally. There's so many ways to do it. So
yeah,
many ways. And I think that's when you're connected, though, to what it is that we're talking about, those opportunities become more noticeable, right? Like more,
Mhm.
you're more aware of them. You're more conscious of them. You're more, they're, you kind of see them as a bigger part of the plan versus this just sort of like rote thing you're doing, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
stuck in this 9 to 5, and that's just
Yep.
just the rat race, blah blah blah, poor me kind of thing. Instead of being like, ah, I got to do this now, but this is why, and this is what I'm doing, and it's going to step move me to here, and you have that space, that energy, and guess what? Next thing you know, hey, that guy called you, or this, this person emailed you, or something moves, right?
Mhm.
Something shifts and moves, and from there, who knows,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It just keeps unfolding. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. No, rejection is the proof that you're trying, Coop. That's right. It's you can't you can't get rejection without asking, right? And
Right.
that's if you don't ask, you're not trying. My father had a very wise statement at one point years ago with a friend of ours in college who, after first meeting my father and all his wise nonsense that he would spit out with, God, sometimes the stuff that he would say to people he never met was just like, "Would you don't even know who this person is? Golly, man, you gotta be careful sometimes."
Oh
But
my god.
there was this guy that was talking about, there's this girl that he's kind of been eyeing for a while, and he's like, I want to, I'm afraid to ask her out. And my dad asked why, and he's like, well, because she'll probably reject me. She'll probably say no,
Mhm. Mhm.
and if I don't ask her, she can't say no. And my dad said she can't say yes either.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
was, I mean, it was like, well, that's true, but it's
Yeah.
that fear of if I don't do it, then no bad will happen. Yeah, but no good's coming from that either.
You don't, yeah, you'd have no idea what's gonna potentially could happen.
Yeah, you have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I mean, nobody likes
Mhm,
rejection. No one likes failing. Nobody likes, s- not knowing what they're doing or
mhm,
feeling inept. I mean, nobody likes that.
right,
But are you willing to step into that and embrace it?
mhm.
You know, embrace the suck, as they say, right? Like
Yeah,
the fact that and it's not a negative thing. It's just like, hey, I'm, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here at the level I need to yet, and I'm gonna be pretty bad at it,
right,
but
right,
I'm willing to be bad at it to get that experience, to grow, to learn, to connect to people, to and live a life, right? Like
mhm,
be in life.
yep,
So,
yep,
I mean,
yeah.
it's
It it
that's really what I want for people. I just want people to live lives they love, like engage in life. Like, what is that? I don't know what that looks like for you,
yeah.
but
No, I
do
think a lot of
that.
people are disconnected, and they
Mm,
don't
mhm.
realize what that feeling is until they're actually connected, you know what I mean? And I've
Oh,
gone through
definitely.
both sides of that. I've
Of
felt so
course.
connected for a while, and, like, man,
Yeah.
everything is just, like,
Mhm.
full of color and sound and
Mhm.
engagement and excitement and happiness, and, when
Mhm.
sucky days are really
Mhm.
sucky, but good days are
Mhm.
really awesome, and when you become
Mhm.
disconnected,
Yeah.
it's kinda just like this flat line, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like, that should have been a lot more fun, and I don't feel much from it, and man,
Right. Right.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe I'm getting older, and that should have been way worse, but I don't seem to care as much. It's like, you should care more about that. That
Mhm.
should have sucked more, that's because you 'cause you're not connected.
Yeah.
And it gets kind of scary, and I've realized
It's
that lately
tricky,
that I'm
isn't it?
like,
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah.
been connected, and I gotta get
Yeah.
back into that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it ebbs and flows. There's no
oh,
perfect.
yeah.
I totally get what you're saying, though. Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to just feel flat, feel like,
Mhm.
okay, wrote blah blah blah, same day, same date, blah blah.
Yep.
And that's why it's good to have those people around you to be like, hey, what's going on, or hey, let's do this, or push you, or to bounce ideas off of, or I mean, it's life, right? It's
Yep.
not. There's no. As I talk about this, I'm aware of my. I don't have it figured out for sure, but I do have enough experience, and I do know where I've been, and what works and what doesn't, and
Mhm.
what makes me the happiest. And
Yeah, and from experience on different
yeah,
levels, you learn, and you gotta listen to that, obviously, you have to pay attention to that
hmm
and keep going back to those things
yeah,
regardless, and those will take you somewhere. If you listen to it and you're doing your best to stay
hmm
connected,
hmm
that will get you in the right direction, but you can't be stubborn. And listen, I've been plenty stubborn with stuff. You can't be stubborn with it.
You? No.
Yeah, no, shocker.
Me neither. So I don't know what you
Well,
got to that.
yeah, I mean, but it's good and bad. You have
Mhm.
to be stubborn on some level to kind of push
Yeah,
through
for
some of this
sure.
stuff because it's
Yeah,
very easy to get stopped early on whatever you're trying to do.
yeah.
And if you're not stubborn and hard headed on some level, you won't be able to push past
Mhm,
that barrier or the barriers that show
mhm.
up. But you
Right.
have to be paying attention to what that's really telling you too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Um, I mean, stubbornness has got me on the good and bad of both, physically and mentally.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think there's no perfect with any of it. It's just being,
Hmm.
engaged and being. Yeah, I mean, there's a potential to fail. There's always a potential to do well, and I think
Hmm.
just the more you can engage and tap into it, the more you're open to being. You're open to whatever happens, right? You're more
Yeah,
connected to whatever
yeah.
happens, and
That's the
yeah,
whole that's the whole theory behind just embracing amor fati is,
yep,
it's
definitely,
embracing all of it at the same and
yep,
loving it all the same.
yep,
Good, bad, whatever it is, that's
right.
the whole idea behind that.
Yeah. Or like
So,
the other stoic thing of the obstacle is the way, right? Like these
mhm,
things that are appearing to be obstacles are potential opportunities, potential ways of stepping into the next level
mhm,
or next next yeah, whatever needs to show up next for you. So
right.
being, you know, just yeah, being on the lookout for that, being
Mhm,
like, just in the space of receiving and allowing and openness, I think, is the other thing because,
yep,
yeah, if you get
yep,
rigid or you get dogmatic about it or,
yeah.
it just doesn't flow as easily.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's
So,
just it shrinks down the energy that's moving around.
mhm,
Stubborn or determined?
mhm.
Yes.
A little bit of both, right?
Yes, there's certainly difference.
Mhm, mhm,
Stubbornness can turn into determination,
mhm,
but I don't think determination creates stubbornness. I think that's more of the callus that forms because of it. But
mhm.
yeah, I'm certainly both.
Yeah,
Depends on what it is too, but that's me. I'm not gonna try and shake it anymore.
yeah,
You know, it's
yeah. There's always like the yin and the yang of things, right? Like
yep.
you know, just the different, and they both are needed, both sides of it.
Yeah,
So,
you have to have both for
mhm,
sure. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, for those of you that are listening and for those of you that are going to catch us on the restream, that I think will hopefully help you guys in determining when you should or if you should change careers and why you should change careers. I think it's important to have a discussion with yourself about that for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
And wrap your head around, are you just having a disconnected moment in time and that's why you're unhappy with where you're at in life, or are you truly listening to
Yeah.
that outside knock on the door saying
Yeah.
it's time, it's time,
Yeah.
and like I said, you
Yeah.
got to have a catalyst. A lot of
Yep.
times going to help get you going,
Yep.
but pay attention to those catalysts,
Yeah. And be yeah, those catalysts can be disruptive and disruptive things
Hmm.
can be challenging and disruptive things can be hard.
And
But,
chaotic and
yeah,
scary and yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But, I think it's kind of like, when you go from like your reference points are changing,
Mm,
like, of who you are and what you're doing, like if you have this particular way of earning money, for example, right? Like that's your reference point for what things look like. And when that goes away, it's like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know how things work anymore until you get that next level of stability, that next platform to stand on.
mhm.
Now you've got a new reference point, and that just keeps expanding. Um, so yeah, just be open and aware of it. And but yeah, it is a real internal job, right? It's
Oh
nobody's
yeah.
gonna tell. There's no perfect time. There's no magical moment of maybe there is, I don't know, maybe that. maybe the
Sometimes there are,
maybe the
not
heavens open
only.
and you get
Yeah.
this like magical like go here. Okay.
Sometimes it's pretty darn
Maybe.
obvious.
Sometimes. But
Sometimes,
yeah,
but
may or
it's
not
that's
be.
a little more rare. Yeah. Yeah.
So
But pay attention and just if you're staying connected and your eyes are open, then it will you'll figure it out and you'll figure out the choice you need to make for sure. Listen,
mhm.
I can be 1,000% correct in saying that and
Yeah,
confident in saying that I know that's the
right.
longer you fight things, the more you try and make excuses for, why you're not
Yep.
making a decision, the
Yep.
longer it's gonna eat at you. So
Yep. Oh yeah.
don't try and
Exactly.
justify the opposite. Just run with it.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Run with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Dr. Matt, it's been a
Cool,
pleasure once
man.
again.
Yeah, it's a good topic. Liked it.
Yeah,
Liked it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully that helps some
More to
people.
come, everybody. Yeah, more to
Absolutely.
come. We're gonna
Yep.
be evolving this conversation, I think, as we go forward,
Absolutely.
looking
Absolutely.
at ways we can better support you and on both of our areas of interest and
hmm
expertise and
Yeah, and whichever way we can do that. I mean, we've
mhm,
got it. We've got it from all angles. I think at this point to attack. So,
yeah. And we're
um,
we're creating as we go too and
oh
looking at
yeah, absolutely.
how we
Yeah.
can engage in the same conversation. So
Yep.
yep.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate everybody lurking. I appreciate everyone in the chat. Coop, thank you
Yeah.
for stopping in.
Yeah. Thanks, Scoop.
Um, if you're catching on the restream, drop your questions in the comments below. Do the whole 9 yards. Subscribe, hit the like button. Dr. Matt is streaming on his channel as well. You guys can follow him as we always post those things on Instagram.
Mhm.
You guys know where to find me. It's been a pleasure, Dr. Matt.
Yes,
That is
sir.
a wrap on the phase next level of building wealth and health. Look forward to more of these. Look forward to more of the same topic. Um,
Yep.
everybody have a great evening.
Yeah. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining us, and we'll catch you again.
Yeah. All right. Later, guys.
See ya.